Hey everyone, Brian from the channel Brian here. I just woke up. I look and feel like trash, but that's kind of thematically appropriate because today I am going to be predicting the 2021 Oscar nominations. The nominations are dropping in a couple days. It's the 10th as I record this, and I think they're dropping on the 15th. As we all know, 2020, not the most crowded year for movies, but I found it surprisingly easy to come up with lists of nominations, at least what I think are going to be there, and that's very important. This is not a personal list of what I want to be nominated. This is what I am putting my faith in the Academy to do. And I'm only going to do the 6 major categories, those being Best Picture, Best Director, and the 4 acting categories, because I don't know, it's just a little bit more difficult for me to pick what I think the Academy is going to find the 5 best edited movies of the year, just as an example. Like, they gave the Oscar to Bohemian Rhapsody for their editing that one year, and that seems like it'd be really hard to predict. But I do have some movies that I think should be nominated, or I think will be nominated, but not like the whole category, and I'll say those at the end. If I think that something in particular deserves to be nominated in a category, even if I have no guesses as to what it would be up against. So without further ado, let's get started. And I'm also going to be going in descending order of how likely I think the film or person I've selected is to be nominated in that category. And that doesn't necessarily mean the one at the top I think is going to win. I just think it's the most likely one to be there. So we're going to start off with Best Picture. My number 1 prediction is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. This, especially with the passing of Chadwick Boseman, really seems like a likely option, and they also have Viola Davis's performance. We'll be talking about those a little later when we get to the acting categories. Trust me, it's right up their alley. It's historical fiction. It's an adaptation from another dramatic work. Next is Nomadland, which to me always seemed like this very powerful film that was always on the horizon that had not come out yet. I just saw Nomadland, and it really seems like it's up the Academy's alley, especially with some of the choices they made, like actually using nomads as actors in the movie. Frances McDormand is a very good leading actress for that type of story, and it's very atmospheric, it's very well shot. I think it's got a very good sense of American visual beauty, even if that's for more thematic purposes than anything. I know I said that if a movie's towards the top, it doesn't automatically mean I think that's what's going to win, but I would really not be surprised if Nomadland went home with Best Picture come Oscar night. Next is this is the guaranteed safe pick of the year. If there's ever like a milquetoast pick, it's Trial of the Chicago 7. It's so full of itself, but so in ways that the Academy loves. It's like a courtroom drama. There's a lot of room for actors to do character work. It's historically based, as is very popular with the Oscars as well. It's also kind of like socially relevant given what's been happening in terms of protests and like highlighting systems of injustice in America for the past year. So if Nomadland doesn't take it, I would not be surprised if Trial of the Chicago 7 did. My next pick, Promising Young Woman. Not really a movie that the Oscars would usually go for. It's a subject matter that is closer to like a little bit more of an exploitation film, but I think this being on here it's certainly something that I think is going to happen. It wouldn't be at number 4 if I didn't think that. But I think any other year it wouldn't be. I think the sort of lack of crowdedness would cause the Oscar crowd to focus on this. That's really... I have more to say about Promising Young Woman in a bit, but that's what I have to say for now. Number 5 is One Night in Miami. It's kind of like... I feel bad for One Night in Miami, which I did see, and I did think it was good. I thought it was better than Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, actually, but because it has those 2 powerhouse performances, one of them is a posthumous with Chadwick Boseman, I think it got a lot of attention that One Night in Miami deserved. There's certainly a lot of comparisons you can make between the two. Regina King, I think her direction was a little bit stronger than it was in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and it seemed to find ways to pull the narrative forward a little bit more than Ma Rainey's Black Bottom did, where it just seemed like you were waiting for things to happen sometimes. It's horrible for me to say, but the Oscars always picks like some filler for the Best Picture nominations, and I think this is going to be the filler for this year, and that's why it's so high on my list. It's like number 5 right now, because it's going to be completely overshadowed by Ma Rainey, but they still need to fill up those like 10 slots. After One Night in Miami, Mank. Mank has a lot of things that Hollywood really likes to nominate for Best Picture. It's about Hollywood, for one thing. Remember when La La Land was nominated and everybody was like, oh, it's just Hollywood patting themselves on the back about how wonderful they are. Same kind of sentiment is going into Mank, especially because it is about the screenwriting process of the greatest film of all time, as it's labeled anyway, Citizen Kane. It's also a David Fincher movie that's not like, I don't know, horribly graphic, and so I think that'll appeal a little bit more to the Oscar crowd. Next, the only movie on this predictions list that I haven't seen, which is The Father. I have flashbacks hearing about The Father to the two popes from 2019, because they're both Anthony Hopkins taking advantage of his old age in his performances. I haven't seen either of these. I'm sure his performances are both very good in them, but it seems like he's becoming kind of like a male Meryl Streep, where the Academy is just picking a movie that he's in or a performance that he does and saying, oh, they're like a great actor, and they don't have to, actually think about it before saying this person deserves an Oscar nomination. My next pick, Soul. Gotta be lower on the list because it is an animated film, and there have only been like 3 Best Picture nominations that were animated. But Soul, I think, really resonated with people in this year. It's a very happy coincidence that a movie about living life to your fullest and not being obsessed with work in details and what you're supposed to do came out in a year where we were all stuck inside. I never want a Best Picture winner or nominee to have debuted on Disney+, but if we're going to have that happen, Soul is probably the best case scenario, because I really liked Soul. Next, Minari. Minari's a tough case because I think it's really going to be, I'll talk about this a little later, but I think it's going to be the winner for Best Foreign Language Movie, even though there is a little bit of controversy over whether or not that should be a category it's even nominated for. But still, it's a very good movie. I think that compared to the ones above it, though, it is more likely to be ignored by the Academy. It's more of a case of everything above it, I think, is more of a shoo-in than it is. And my number 10 pick is Hillbilly Elegy. I always try to have at least a few picks that really are indicative of my lack of faith in the Academy to do anything smart. If Nomadland and Minari are nominated for Best Picture, there is no possible reason you could say Hillbilly Elegy deserves to be. Those two movies do everything it does a million times better, but Ron Howard and everybody involved with that film seems so convinced that it deserves to be seen as like this illuminating masterpiece about whatever vague political things it says it's trying to do. And I think it might just be enough to attract the clueless fogies at the Academy. As for my snubs, this is partially why I think Hillbilly Elegy is going to be nominated for Best Picture, because not only will it be nominated, this also means that they run out of room to nominate Spike Lee with The Five Bloods and Judas and the Black Messiah, and I think it is especially in a year where it seems like a lot of eligible Best Picture nominees are very focused on BIPOC and women lives. Ma Rainey, Promising Young Woman, One Night in Miami, Soul, Minari, The Five Bloods, Judas and the Black Messiah. I think it would be incredibly Academy to leave a few of those nominees off and put in something as blasé and stupid but white as Hillbilly Elegy. I think Judas and the Black Messiah is more likely to be nominated for Best Picture and kick something on my list off than The Five Bloods is, but that really about sums it up. Moving on to Best Director, we have at number 1 on my list, Chloe Zhao for Nomadland. Whether or not you enjoyed Nomadland, I think that it's hard to argue that it's a pretty well-directed movie. She won the Best Director Golden Globe, so I think that's a very big point in her favor. That happens a lot where, directors who win other awards oftentimes get at least nominated for Best Director at the Oscars. She was also the first Asian woman to win a Best Director Golden Globe, and so I think it would be kind of cool if that would also be the case if the same milestone happened for the Oscars the same year. Number 2 on my list, we have Emerald Fennell with Promising Young Woman. I think she is extremely likely because my problems with Promising Young Woman really mostly came from the script and the way it executes a lot of its commentary. But it is surprisingly well done in a lot of other aspects. Carey Mulligan and Bo Burnham, they gave you exactly the performances you needed. Her overseeing of all of these very colorful environments and with the way the film looks, I think that she is a very, even though she's a debut, this is her debut feature, I think it's very likely for her to be picked. We're moving on next. Regina King for One Night in Miami. If you're going to compare One Night in Miami with Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I think Miami is more likely to get a directing nod because Regina King is making an actor-to-director turn, which, when done right, I think the Academy really likes. So I think that it is entirely likely that that'll happen. It's got great performances, and I think that's all I have to say about that. Number 4, Aaron Sorkin, Trial of the Chicago 7. Not a pick that I would choose, but definitely something that I think appeals to the Academy. It is serviceable in a lot of technical areas, not at all deficient in a way that would cause the Academy to say, no, we don't want to nominate this. Plus, I think if it might win Best Picture, it also has to win Best Director. So that's really it. And my least likely pick, I think, is David Fincher with Mank. Moving on to the snubs, Lee Isaac Chung, Minari, great film, great directed film, but not as likely as either of them. Especially, I think for the snubs it comes with, can you overpower the name recognition with David Fincher? If you can't do that, I guess you're just not going to make it. Spike Lee, The Five Bloods, probably going to get snubbed, which is a shame. Also, Shaka King, Judas of the Black Messiah, probably going to get snubbed. If I had to pick, I'd say Shaka King deserves a nomination more than Spike Lee, but that's just my opinion. And the last pick, I know 100% that this is not going to happen, but I would have loved to see a directing nod for Thomas Vinterberg with Another Round. I think that is snub or an actual prediction of mine. I think that is the best directed one of them all. Maybe Minari is better, but I also think that's going to get snubbed. So, moving on to Best Leading Actor. I think the most likely option to not just be nominated, but be win is Chadwick Boseman for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. This, I think, if you are putting your money on any other actor winning the Oscar for that this year, I think you're kind of crazy. He was just so beloved and loved by people, and his career was cut short. And coupled with how he was most famous now for playing a superhero or a comic book character, I really think that the Chadwick Boseman, his unfortunate passing, is going to be like the Heath Ledger Joker situation of our era or decade. My next pick is Anthony Hopkins with The Father. Not that it's impossible for him to win. I mean, nothing's impossible, but it's not just like I said before where they want to pick him because he's like, their filler pick. But I think with The Father, because it's about like Alzheimer's and memory, I think it's a inherently very compelling subject matter and would especially resonate with a lot of people that they would put him on there. Number 3 is Gary Oldman with Mank. I disagree. He was the only performance in that movie I was not like completely sold on. But I don't think he's going to win, not just because of Boseman, but because he's just very close to having won for Darkest Hour. And relative to how long his career has been, I think it's going to be a long time before he wins an Oscar again. Next we have my pick, which is Riz Ahmed for Sound of Metal. I liked Boseman, but I think he should win. And my 5th pick was pretty tough. It was pretty in contention with my other snubs. But number 5, I picked Delroy Lindo with The Five Bloods. My snubs are Stephen Yeun in Minari and Kingsley Ben-Adir from One Night in Miami. And especially with One Night in Miami, I think the performances are all very good. The 4 essential performances are very good. But I think that they might easily cancel each other out in terms of like, oh, they have such equal footing. Okay, moving on to Best Actress. I mean, come on. If you're not convinced that Viola Davis is gonna win Best Actress, Best Lead Actress for this, you're living under a rock. She is absolutely gonna win this. People fell in love with this role. She obviously has like a huge catalog, and I think that honestly, relative to a lot of her other performances, I preferred her in Fences, I preferred her in Widows. But even though I'm kind of like the outlier, and I think that Chadwick Boseman and Viola Davis have both given better performances in other places, I still 100% understand why the Academy would choose to pick them for these nominations. They are two very good performances. It would also be interesting to see like a movie win both of the lead acting categories. That'd be kind of I don't think that's happened for a while. My next pick is it was pretty hard to choose between 2 and 3. Carey Mulligan, Promising Young Woman, and Frances McDormand for Nomadland. I would want Promising Young Woman to win more things because, as I said a little bit, I alluded to it before, it's not the kind of movie that the Academy would pick. Not that I don't think it has its little hiccups in communicating its ideas, but I think that for the vision that other people are seeing and getting from it, I think it would be a very fresh voice to be included in all of these things. And so, even though I liked Viola Davis and Frances McDormand probably, I don't know if more than Carey Mulligan, I do think that she deserves to win the most. Number 4 is Vanessa Kirby from Pieces of a Woman. I think that that was a pretty good movie. Better than a lot of the movies that I think are going to be nominated for Best Picture, definitely. And number 5 is Amy Adams for Hillbilly Elegy. Just because I think that the Academy is so out of touch that they would give Amy Adams a nomination for this over her performance in Arrival. Tell me that is not exactly in their character for Amy Adams to not win for this subtle and emotional science fiction performance, but to win for this cartoonish caricature of a drug addict. I think, as for snubs, these 5 are pretty much my locks. I don't think anybody is really going to come close to the Academy nominating them instead. The Assistant's getting nothing, and I know that. I like The Assistant. The Academy won't. It's not their kind of movie. She's not going to get it, so we're going to move on to Best Supporting Actor. This one was pretty crowded. Surprisingly crowded, I thought. It's for me, it's no contest that Daniel Kaluuya in Judas and the Black Messiah is my number 1 prediction. He is very likely to be nominated. And he did a good job. He did a good job as Fred Hampton. I know there were some people who were saying that his voice sounds a little cartoonish and stereotypical. I watched some like real clips of Fred Hampton afterwards to see how well he did in actually replicating the way he talks and his voice, because it was an object of controversy. And I don't think that it was terrible. I think that it certainly is a good performance in itself, and it's certainly very kind of like what people are looking for in terms of like a guy who has a powerful voice and is like a human rallying cry. He could win. I'm not really sure. I don't have a definite person who I think is gonna win in this category. But with number 2, I have Sacha Baron Cohen in Trial of the Chicago 7. Like One Night in Miami, that's a movie that's very crowded with performances, and I feel like it could be like, oh, we have these 6 actors who are putting up for your consideration, and the Academy just doesn't know who to choose. But out of all of them, I think Sacha Baron Cohen had the strongest performance and the one that will appeal to the Academy more. What's weird about Trial of Chicago 7 is that it seems like they're all supporting performances. I can't see it being nominated for like a lead acting performance. But as for number 3, this is going to be, I think, a bold pick, but Chadwick Boseman for Da 5 Bloods. Everybody's talking about his performance for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I think Chadwick Boseman was better in Da 5 Bloods. That's just my opinion. All I know is that if Scarlett Johansson can get a double acting nomination for Marriage Story and Jojo Rabbit, Chadwick Boseman can get one for Da 5 Bloods and Ma Rainey. Moving on to number 4 is Leslie Odom Jr. for One Night in Miami. His performance was the best of the 3 that weren't Kingsley Ben-Adir, so I think that he's probably the one who's going to get it. But also, he's like a known name for like Hamilton. And number 5, this was kind of like sort of like an outlier pick. I think David Strathairn, I don't know how to say his last name, but David Strathairn from Nomadland. As for snubs, I was kind of, this is a funny pick, but I was kind of holding out for Robert Pattinson in The Devil All the Time. His performance is so goofy, but I would have loved to have seen him nominated because I like him now. Aldous Hodge, One Night in Miami, another really great performance from One Night in Miami that I think is just kind of gonna get lost in the shuffle. Paul Raci, Sound of Metal. I would definitely put Paul Raci on the actual list, but the last one I have, just as a troll pick, Jared Leto for The Little Things. If he can get nominated for a Golden Globe, who knows? It's not impossible. Moving on to Best Supporting Actress, my front runner is Olivia Colman for The Father. Next is Amanda Seyfried in Mank. She's the one I want to win. I quickly noticed with this category that there are not as many actresses who I think are really going to be like, oh, this person's definitely going to be like a pick. But yeah, Amanda Seyfried, she gave a good performance, was very convincing as her character. Even if she doesn't have a ton to do, I think that her sensibility really matched her character super well. Number 3 is Helena Zengel from News of the World. The Academy really likes nominating kids for roles as filler, so I think this might be a case of that. Number 4, my troll pick, Glenn Close, Hillbilly Elegy. I mean, you know, she shouts, she wears makeup that makes her look unattractive, so the Academy will eat that up. Number 5, I'm still holding out for Maria Bakalova from Borat subsequent movie film. Just because this category in particular, I think, is not as crowded of a race. If there were any other performance that could fit into this spot, I would pick that as more likely than her. As for snubs, Ellen Burstyn, Pieces of a Woman, I think that her performance was good, but I think that she did not have as much screen time. That's been a big point of contention, how much screen time she had. And as much as I think that it's a bad reason to leave somebody off, and in this specific case, I think the screen time will be an issue. And with that, those are my predictions for the 6 major categories at the Oscars, the 4 acting categories, director, and picture. So now we're just going to go round out some of the loose ends that I have for the other categories, namely the original and adapted screenplay. I'm not going to go into as much detail with these outliers as I did the other ones. But for Best Adapted Screenplay, I have definitely Ma Rainey and One Night in Miami because they're stage to screen. No Man Land, I didn't know this was like an adapted screenplay, but since it is, I think that'll definitely be on there. The Father, also adapted, probably going to get on there. It's hard for me to guess because I picked, is the Academy going to go with I'm Thinking of Ending Things as an adapted screenplay? I'm not sure. I think First Cow also has a chance. For Best Original Screenplay, definitely Mank and Trial of the Chicago 7 are going to be on there. Promising Young Woman, Judas and the Black Messiah, and The Five Bloods are movies that I think are possible. Until recently, I didn't know that a movie that is based on a true story counted as an original screenplay. And it kind of confuses me that they're not counted as adapted screenplays because the material that you're working with is already there. Moving on to Best Sound, I don't know if it's just divided into 2 categories with editing and mixing still, or if it's just one category for Best Sound. Either way, Sound of Metal is a movie that is very much about how the sound is presented in order to tell its story, so I think that's definitely going to get a nomination. Also, Tenet. Tenet is a movie that I think is not going to get a lot of dramatically viable nominations, like for acting or Best Picture. But it is a very large and technical movie. Chris Nolan is known for that. He got a lot of those awards with Dunkirk, if I remember correctly. So I think Tenet is also going to follow sort of the same path as that. For Best Cinematography, I think Tenet's also going to get a nomination, but I would not at all be surprised if Mank or Nomadland really managed to sort of snag up that win for it. And we're going to round out my predictions with Best Foreign Language Film. Another round would be my pick. That's still my second favorite movie of the year after all of the movies that I've seen since. But also, I've heard good things about La Llorona, so I think that's also going to get a nomination. And lastly, even if it shouldn't be nominated for this category because it's reductive to what the film is trying to say and trying to do, even if English is the majority language spoken in it, I think Minari is definitely going to get a nomination in this category and is definitely going to go on and win that category. It makes no sense, I agree. It is an American film made by an American studio, by an American director, starring American characters, but they speak Korean sometimes. And that's all the Academy is going to care about. But we'll just have to see. The nominations are coming out the 15th. It is the 10th as I record this. So we're going to see next Monday, I think, whether or not I was right or wrong. I will definitely be making a a video about my reactions to the nominations themselves, and then another video predicting what I think is going to win. So, yeah. So if you like not only words, but the way I arrange and then say them, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to me, Brian from the channel Brian. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.